David Wu, right?
David Wu.
All right, cool. I'm gonna like kind of do the intro now.
Sure.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Today we have a very special guest, owner of Riff Shop's YouTube channel and creator of Scream Academy. What's your name, my man?
My name is David Wu, and thanks
is
for
it
having
true?
me on.
Are you the owner of Riff Shop and Scream Academy?
Yes, I am. Yeah, me and my buddy and business partner Sean, we run the whole operation, and we somehow make a living teaching people how to make weird demonic noises out of their mouth.
Dude, I think that's, I mean, I do the same thing, but not demonic noises. But, hey, Sean, is he the white guy in the videos?
Yeah, he's the white guy.
Okay, I was going to say, because I went back and watched a few videos, because I was like, well, I got to go back and watch a few. That's what originally brought me to your channel. And then, I don't know how, but Scream Academy got in my email, and I was like, oh, this is that guy that makes the weeb metal. I love that shit.
Yeah, that's me.
The weeaboo metal, the lolicon, and like the hentai one are like my three favorites. And I was showing them to my buddy yesterday. I was like, dude, what do you think of this? He's like, this stuff's hilarious. I'm like, I'm gonna be chatting with him tomorrow. He's like, no way. But that's pretty cool stuff. How'd you get started doing that?
So it's really interesting. So a little over 3 years ago, I got laid off from my corporate job. And it's really interesting because up until that point, it felt like I was living a parallel life. And so while I was working, I was wishing that I was on the road playing music. But meanwhile, while I was on the road playing music, I was wishing that I was making more money. So after I got, so it was really funny, but after I got laid off, I saw it as an opportunity because for a bit I had unemployment coming in and I was like, fuck it, I'm not getting any younger. If I don't go for it now, then I'm going to live the rest of my life regretting it because, I read some articles saying that the number one regret of people before their deathbed is that they didn't pursue their passions. Mm-hmm. So I took the leap and then I started a Riff Shop with a friend named Harshit. And we started in the form of a YouTube channel by making silly videos. And we tried a bunch of different things. We tried doing interviews with random people on the street. We tried doing tutorials, YouTube advice tutorials. And then somewhere along the way, we discovered that making music videos was the thing that really took off. So a lot of people know us for the tutorials that teach people how to code in HTML using death metal or how to drive stick shift using death metal. So we did videos like that, and then we eventually settled on the channel direction of combining anime with metalcore songs. And then so we rode that for a while, and then we were happy. We were creatively fulfilled, but we realized that we weren't making there's multiple reasons why we pivoted to go to the next step. But one of the big reasons was that we wanted to have an impact, because one thing that starts to happen as you start getting more and more views for your channel is that you start thinking like, okay, well, if I have the ability to reach a lot of people, I feel like it's a sort of responsibility to spread some type of good message or provide some type of value. Yeah. And so then we simply asked our students or our audience at the time, if you could learn anything from us, what would it be? And then we had some couple ideas, and by far the most popular one was that people wanted to learn how to scream. So, fast forward, that brings us to today. So we pretty much we still do YouTube stuff, but our main focus is on our music education courses.
That's what it seems like, at least from the updates I get. And I get a lot of, even though how I was attending Scream Academy was my roommate, but he moved out. So, but I still get emails, so I know you guys are actively working on Scream Academy, which I think is great because, there's never really been a super on learning that art. Someone's like, this is how you pick squeal, this is how you do this, but you don't really get course from beginning to end, doing things safely, doing things fun, and just in general, the whole vibe of your channel is have fun doing it. It's awesome. and don't even worry about looking funny because someone's probably gonna be like, "Oh, dude, that's sick."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's to your point. I mean, there's many reasons why we felt that it was kind of necessary to kind of fill the void in screaming education. But one of the
Mhm.
big things is that music, and particularly doing vocals, is a very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable practice, putting your voice
Yeah.
out there. And as a result, there's a lot of kind of personal development that kind of goes along with that. There's a lot about it's like 80% like mentality and your approach to
Hmm.
it, and just kind of your control over your motivations, and having good work ethic. And
Yeah.
we noticed that there was a void in current YouTube tutorials where they would give kind of like a high level vague explanation of like kind of how to do it, but they wouldn't even address kind of the process that it takes to attain mastery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, how to like
for
applicate it in like a real setting when you're gonna need it, rather than just, hey, you're sitting at your computer and you could do it, which is still fun, but it's better
yeah,
to
exactly.
understand the process behind something.
Yes. Exactly.
Huh. I mean, I can kind of like sympathize, or not sympathize, apathize. No, I can just relate to that.
Apathize. I don't
Like,
care.
I mean, I've loved screaming, and I honestly, I remember when I was very much just listening to like tons of Dance Gavin Dance, Bring Me the Horizon, Asking Alexandria. When I was really new into this whole like hardcore scene, I was just like, this is amazing, and I had to pretty much, 6, 7 years ago, teach myself how to do it because it's very hard to find a vocal coach that teaches that, and you know anyone it was just it's such a rare skill, so I had to like study like a little bit of anatomy, like what you do and what you did. I had to really analyze like what's going on. This is before I knew how to use EQs and compression and isolating vocals. But I mean, I still to this day am listening to Dance Gavin Dance, Bring Me the Horizon, Architects, things like that, and it's crazy to see like how far I guess the screaming game has come, and like new artists and how they're developing their style, coming from understanding the basics.
Totally.
I mean,
Totally.
I
I
can
agree.
listen to Architects and tell you like that's them based on vocals and the drums.
Yeah.
Um, I know you told me one of your favorites is Greg from Dillinger Escape Plan, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. That dude's a beast. He definitely inspires me as an artist because I feel like his band Dillinger Escape Plan. One thing that they do is that they're very actively counterculture, and they actively go against kind of what mainstream metal is supposed to sound like. So I definitely try and
Nice.
employ that ethos in a lot of what I do. So I have a lot of respect for Dillinger Escape Plan.
What was your first scream band that you enjoyed listening to?
My first screaming band?
Yeah, or something that just introduced you to that genre.
Sure. Well, I think so my first gateway drug was probably Disturbed, but I mean, I wouldn't say that
Oh,
they're really like screaming. I think I like really took the leap with Trivium, and I remember
okay.
when I was in middle school, my friend Scott pretty much
Yeah.
recommended me this band, and then he was like, "You got to check out this band." And then I think it was probably the first CD I ever bought was Ascendancy by Trivium. But the funny thing
Nice.
about that was that when I put it on, it was like too much screaming too soon, so like I like wasn't down for it. And then I would like fast forward just to like the singing parts or like the guitar solos. But
Ah,
after a while, then I kept on re-listening to it, and then I slowly started to accept the rest of it, and the rest is history.
and I mean, would you say you have a specialty of scream? I mean, I know like the fry scream is like what you talk about a lot. Would you say like you decided to focus on that style at one
Yeah.
point?
So the thing is, and I don't know how technical you want to get here, but typically, there's multiple reasons for that. One of the main reasons is that a lot of people tend to like fry screams better. That's just kind of like what I've noticed is that people
Yeah.
tend to try and do fry screams more than false chord screams.
Hmm.
I could perform both of them, but and
Yeah.
obviously teach both of them, but part of part of being a good teacher and being a good, business owner is that you have to kind of give people what they want. And so that's why fry screaming is probably the most emphasized.
I think that's pretty cool. I mean, honestly, it's versatile and you can use it in a lot of ways. One of my favorite things was when you pointed out like how to use it while fast rapping, and that could be like one of my favorite ways when they're talking like you're just machine gunning
Yeah.
while you're doing that, and I love that sound in general. But man, like man, I have to say some of my earliest inspirations on what I learned was like who's that Australian? Oh, Thy Art is Murder.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they are brutal, man. Holy moly. So he was one of like my first ones, like I was like studying, trying to figure it out. And the bad thing about Bring Me the Horizon, even though I love them and I love Ollie and whatever, but I mean, he damaged his vocal cords a lot from his earlier stuff. And you notice that when the Sempiternal album came out, he had to change his vocal style a lot on that. But I
Yeah.
mean, it did make the sound mature.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
But I guess like practicing without understanding how to be safe really can do some damage long time. Not to scare people away from it, it's just understand things, and then that we don't hurt your voice in the long run.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You got to make sure that you take care of your instrument. I mean, you can't.
Yes.
And fun fact, one common reason why people hurt their voice is not because the actual like screaming itself, but it's actually like the loud talking that happens off stage as opposed to the screaming that happens on stage. Because when you're just talking like, hey, how you doing? Like that's, for an extended period of time, that's what's going to fuck up your voice because your vocal cords are just like colliding together and just, callousing. So.
Well, most people think that when they have to scream, they think it has to be loud, but that's not at all the case.
Exactly.
The scream is just creating distortion in somewhere in here, at least the way I feel it.
Yeah.
And then you use compression. I mean, you just get close to the mic or change things, and that's what makes it loud on the tracks and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I think.
No, totally. I mean, it's that you've hit the nail on the head. A lot of people, they think, oh, I gotta be like super fucking loud, but
you're
that's
gonna
really
kill yourself doing that.
Exactly. And that leads to bad habits coming in. If you're just like going ham, then your bad habits are gonna kick in.
Yeah.
And it's all around pretty bad. So
I would say that's probably why Ollie hurt his voice. Because if you ever look at his his live performances, especially early stuff, and even now still, but I think he finally got a vocal coach, is that he actually does and did have very loud screams. And I mean, you could tell he taught himself, just like, a lot of us teach ourselves things. And I'm not harping on him. I love the guy. Oh my God. But it obviously shows on the timeline.
No, absolutely.
So you like anime?
I do. That was quite the segue, but yeah, I like anime.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I have
like a right turn.
Like, segue to anime somehow, and I'm just like,
no. I love it. I do that shit all the time too. Yeah.
I was gonna ask if you did, but then I noticed on your Skype thing it says I like anime and metal and stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't have to ask. I mean, what kind of anime have you been watching lately?
Yeah, so I think lately, I mean, I actually enjoy manga a little more than I enjoy anime. And manga, for those who aren't privy to this, is pretty much like the comic book version of anime. And so I haven't been watching too much recently. Dude, I was actually about to bring up One Piece. So so I think the most recent anime that I was obsessed with probably was One Piece. I mean, I didn't get through the entire thing. I got through the first half before, like, I don't want to ruin it, but before like things kind of just change.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
they get to the sky world.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Huh. Have you checked out anything like My Hero Academia lately?
I have, but I think that my problem with My Hero Academia is I enjoy it, but I feel like it's very tropey, and there's a lot of kind of
shonen.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like it's a little too tropey for my tastes, and so I kind of like I respect it for what it is. It's done well for what it is, but I on average I like things that are a little weirder, a little darker usually.
Oh, have you seen? Speaking of darker, I mean, I'm sure of course you've seen Death Note, but
yeah,
have you seen The Promised Neverland?
Yeah. No, I
read it.
Yeah, so
I like that one.
I
Right?
really liked it up until the point where they like, I don't like, I'm trying not
Yeah.
to spoil
I mean,
it,
I
but
got to the end of the anime, so that's as much as I know.
yeah, sure. That's pretty much to the point where I like. That's pretty much to the
Oh,
point
does
where
it
I like.
really shift after that?
Well, I think the thing is like when you first get interested into a, well, here's the thing. I feel like when you first get interested into a piece of fiction, is that you're attracted, at least for me, I'm attracted to its initial premise, and once that premise is no longer there, then I kind of lose interest.
It sure seems like that's what's about to happen
Yeah.
because
Uh-huh.
they. I don't want to spoil anything, but guys, I mean, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. I mean, Mom's like gone now. I mean, like they're out of the wall. I mean, basically, this podcast is for us to have fun, so we can talk about it. Like,
Okay, so we could
Mom,
spoil.
yeah, we can spoil,
Okay.
just spoilering. I mean, like Mom's like they
Everyone
got to the
dies.
other side. Yeah,
I'm
it
just kidding.
oh, I just and then I mean, oh, dude, when what's his face? And I know that boy isn't dead when he
Oh,
leaves.
like what is his name? Like Simon? No,
The
not
kid with the
Simon. Like,
white hair, I almost
yeah,
cried, man.
yeah, uh-huh,
that
totally.
that moment was so emotional for me. I was like, no, don't worry, he's not dead. He's probably just being used as a tool to repopulate humans or something.
Yeah.
Man. Well, speaking of that, then anime that has made you cry. For me, I cried like a little girl at Angel Beats and like Clan Ad, things like that. Oh my gosh.
Mm.
And even My Hero Academia and Haikyuu, like those moments where like the boys are like, yeah, and there's a big breakthrough and inspiring thing. I'm just like, oh, I'm getting so emotional.
No, totally, totally. I'm a baby like that too. By the way, Haikyuu is great. Haikyuu is great.
You,
But
dude,
yeah, I think
I have a
I,
Haikyuu cosplay.
oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm gonna be cosplaying Asahi.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I
That's
got the
awesome.
volleyball over there too. I'll show you in a minute.
Dude, nice. Yeah, I actually tried to pick up volleyball. I went to like it's a funny story about that. I went to like a pickup game, and then I like went on the field, and then they were just like, yeah, you're not good enough. You gotta
Oh
leave.
no! So you gotta play with people as bad as you, but they
Yeah,
know the
exactly.
rules. Then you're having fun.
Yeah, huh. Like I'm like my level is like tennis court volleyball. Like that's the type of volleyball that I'm okay at. Just like
I know the rules and I'm still really short, so I'm not gonna be doing nothing. Like I am
yeah.
not good. But man, that anime gets me pumped. And the music in it's so good. Yuki Hayashi is an amazing composer.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
He
absolutely.
co-composed Attack on Titan also and composed My Hero Academia. But I mean he's a really nice guy. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, doesn't know a lot of English, but really great dad. And like I'd sent him a message one day on Instagram. I was like, "You're my hero," and he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, thank you." And I was like, "Oh."
That's
So
pretty cool. You got a response. That's like
yeah.
yeah, that would make my day.
I had to like, I mean, I had to like find him because he has a YouTube channel that he hasn't posted in like 5. You know, what's crazy is he's completely self-taught.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, he started as a rhythmic gymnast, but he got to the point where he couldn't find music that he liked to dance to, so he started making his own music, and that's what got him into creating music. And then I guess it got a lot of big gigs because the main composer of Attack on Titan brought him on as a co-composer, and it's just been his job ever since.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
But that goes to show you can accomplish like another story of like you can accomplish anything if you work hard.
Yeah, I think that kind of reminds me. I kind of have like a personal belief where everything spills into everything. And what I mean by that is that if you do take on one project, whether it be music, whether it be like business, whether it be starting your own YouTube channel, and you dedicate yourself and you see success to that with that, then that builds your self-efficacy, meaning your ability, your confidence to kind of take on new tasks and have the ability to be like, things might be tough, but I'm going to get through this. And you'll start to notice not only does excelling at one particular goal build your self-efficacy, you'll start to notice that a lot of these different subcultures, these like different environments, whether it be like the metal scene or like the anime scene, a lot of them kind of have they have parallels. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's usually the tastemakers, there's usually the people that are, the lifers who just like, their entire life is about that one
Yeah.
subculture. There's, obviously a lot of critics, and then there's like, some weird like hierarchy of like the people who've been in it, who know the
Yes.
true what
Oh
true
yeah.
anime or true metal is,
And
and
then
then
like
who
when
look,
was the death of metal? What band
yeah,
killed it?
exactly, historians.
It
So
can be pretty cool though. Like I love nowadays with internet being so available, one thing that excites me is that active communication with all those people, whether it's in person or not in person. I mean, go figure right now of our times, we're doing a lot more online communication.
yeah.
Um, it's actually really funny. When back to what you were saying, where you were kind of like between a job and you were like, I'm only getting older. I'm only gonna have one time to do this. That's kind of what got me started doing like what I'm doing. So this year, uh, my Amuse and like my guy is telling me I'm hoping to get around 1 million plays on streams on Spotify. I'm hoping that'll work. Because not that I want the money, but I remember ever being in high school listening to bands like Billy Talent and like remembering how important they were to me and how much they helped me and thinking one day I want to help people like this. And I'm really hoping, one day I can do that with my music, but it's not always about taking the first step. Sometimes it really is about like sticking with what you love, whether people are listening or not. If you do it for yourself, it's a lot easier to keep sticking with something.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, you definitely have to have a vested passion in it. I mean, you can't do it purely to appease whatever market opportunity you think that there is.
Yeah.
But to the point, I mean, like you're talking about, I guess, the process of getting, good results off of
Momentum.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a thing with that. There's something that I teach called the dip. So this is a framework taught by a author by the name of Seth Godin. He
Mhm.
writes a lot of great books on entrepreneurship, and so
Did he do the
essentially
same
what
with leveraging that you taught me?
so that's Dan Locke. He's
Okay.
also a
Yeah.
great inspiration. But so the dip essentially means that whenever somebody starts a new activity, and I wish the audio people could see kind of like what I'm doing with my
I
hands,
might
but
make it.
essentially, essentially, when you start any activity, at first you'll see a lot of returns on your investment of time. Meaning, if you spend a day playing guitar, having never played guitar before, you're going to
Yeah.
get a lot better in that day, that one
Yeah.
day. And then the second day, you'll still get a lot of returns. But you'll start to notice that as you keep on practicing, probably once you get to the month period, you'll start noticing that your progress slows down. And there gets to
Hmm.
be a point where you don't see any progress for a while. And this is even though you're putting more and more time into it. So this is the point called the dip. And this is where most people in any endeavor, when they get discouraged and they're like, you know what, maybe it's not for me, maybe I should just give up. So this is the point where a lot of people give up. But what people don't know is that if you continue on, well, first off, what people don't know is that this is normal for anything, whether it be
Yeah.
starting a YouTube channel, whether it be playing music.
Yeah. Anything.
Yeah, but as long as you keep on, I guess, persevering and then working hard as well as smart, then the dip will actually the dip will be finished, and you'll finally start seeing returns on
Hmm.
your investment and the practice that you're putting in. So I think my advice for anybody who's seeking goals is like you said earlier, is you first have to have like a passion for it. But second, you also have to understand that there is a normal process for learning anything where things are going to be good, things are going to suck, and then you got to keep with it, and then things will be really good. So.
I agree. I actually have so there are a lot of in my YouTube videos. There's some of the descriptions. There's ways for people to eventually find me and reach me. So the people that are really thirsty, they'll find me on something and be like, "Hey, can like you teach me for an hour or two?" I'll be like, "Yeah, like $20. Let's do it." I'm not made of time, but I would like. But I
Yeah.
mean, so let's. Anyways, I tell them a lot of the times I have this one very regular student named Arturo, and he was like, "I'm feeling discouraged because like I feel like I've learned a lot, but now things have slowed down." I'm gonna be like, I was like, "Look, the more you learn about something, the more you begin to see that there is so much more to learn." And
Yeah.
it's gonna be overwhelming. You're gonna start to realize that you're actually not even the best at what you thought you were the best at doing, or like how you thought you were like, yo, I'm like on Mozart's level, and you're gonna realize that you're like poopy bunghead, like making beats. And so, and there's mixing, compression, vocals, live things. But the thing I always encourage them is greatness isn't supposed to be easy to attain. And you don't have to be great, but if you do want to, you should be thankful that it's difficult. All that hard work that you can put in means it's special. If someone could just learn everything that I've put my life works into, it wouldn't be special. Like
exactly.
And that hard work and that determination, all those things that you learn and go through actually brings even more value to the skill that you're developing, even if it's overwhelming. And usually they're just like, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, yeah, think of how many people have given up right after they learned how to use the click track and the piano roll and then make a beat, but they put it up on SoundCloud, 50 people listen to it, and then they were like, this isn't for me. If you push past that, you're now that like 10% that decided to do that.
Exactly.
And that will set you apart. Not anything bad on them, but you should hold yourself, if you really love it, to that. Keep going, because if you love it, it's not going to grate at you to do it.
Yeah, no, totally. It's pretty eloquently put. I think that a lot of people, I think that it's kind of tricky because I feel like, and we might be going a little off topic here, but I feel like a lot of people, the tricky thing that happens is that a lot of people will hit these dips and then they'll give up, but they'll keep on trying this over and over and over with different, I guess verticals, whether it be music, whether it be like, entrepreneurship. And the tragedy of all this is that a lot of times if people continue doing this, then they stumble upon like a psychological phenomenon called learned helplessness, where they start to have this impending feeling that whatever they try will not work out for them.
It's gonna happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. So for anybody watching this right now, if that sounds like you, know that it is very possible, but you just have to literally just trust in the process. What Caleb said is absolutely true. You have to, the difficulty in the path is what makes it so special. It's because if anybody could do it, then it wouldn't be amazing. You know what I mean? So trust in the process and find something that you really like. Go full steam ahead on it. And then not only will you achieve that goal, but you'll start to build that self-efficacy that we're speaking about, and you'll get that confidence to take on other things. So I think that it's no surprise, and bringing it back to an earlier thread that you brought up, that it's no surprise that people who are successful in one thing, they can oftentimes pivot and be successful in other things because they don't have that learned helplessness. The exact opposite of learned helplessness is that self-efficacy that I was speaking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's there's a point, and there's everyone I think has the potential to accomplish something great, and there are only very special limitations on that. But we don't have all the time in the world to be great at everything. And you're right. I know a few people, just family members, who have tried something but have always given up. And I think that they have definitely built into that. And it's always been a little sad for me to see, but you just always show love and encourage people. But you're right. Like, some people are just driven to ram their heads into a wall until they break that wall. They're just like, I don't even care if I'm bad at this. I'm just gonna, and that brings me to like the anime factor of why people generally love shonen heroes, because they have that drive my head into the wall, Naruto, Deku, until I accomplishment. And it's, you gotta love the underdog. And I feel like even if you deal with failure a lot, like you said, don't ever let it get you down, because I mean, how many people have it? I mean, even Michael Jordan was turned down on the basketball team when he was in high school because he wasn't tall enough.
Got it. Yeah. By the way, super random, super off topic. I just realized I didn't press record on my end for my audio. So feel free. I'm totally down to I'm totally down to hang out afterwards and add extra time.
Well, I also wanted this just to be fun. Like, half of this podcast is for me to talk to people that I want to talk and introduce people to what I think are like healthy mindset people. I mean, my channel mostly focuses on music, but there's a lot of teenagers and a lot of people that deal with depression and mental health because, I made a video on that, how I was able to, beat it over long years. And, I always like for people to find these guys have helped me, and I want them to have those outlets because, sometimes people, like, I mean, when you're in a world of defeat, it can be really hard for that light to shine all the way down there.
Totally. It's funny that you bring that up. I was actually speaking to a business owner. He owns a business about musical therapy, and he said that there is a positive correlation between people who have high emotional sensitivity and people who are musicians. So the reason why musicians, they tend to be more emotional because the art moves them more. And because they have that susceptibility to be moved, then that oftentimes comes with low lows as well as high highs. So I think that if you're listening to this and you're a musician, just know that you're not alone, and I think that that's partially why a lot of people find solidarity in in going to shows, because they meet other people with similar backgrounds who kind of understand them. So I think that it's a really valuable point that you brought up, and I try and I try and support that as well, instead of just talking about how to mix properly, what knobs to tweak. So
it's
very valuable.
It's definitely about the message too. Sometimes, I mean, it can be such a valuable thing to learn to value yourself. I mean, the more you set yourself up to feel failure, the harder it's going to be to get through that dip, through seeing all those other people that you're going to start to compare yourself to as you get more involved in the art. And having low self-esteem can be a result or correlation of having a mental illness or depressed. I mean, and everyone, especially nowadays, everyone's dealing with something hard. A lot of people who have been out there are stuck in their homes. But I mean, it's a skill to learn not to let that defeat you. And I think, and again, because you had to go through that can also be a part of your story. I love Kanye West, and his struggle with mental illness, as real or not real as I can tell it is, he definitely brings it into his music, into his story, and it's a part of him that has left a legacy that will undoubtedly be remembered for many years, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes
it's the story.
Sometimes
it's all
not
about the story.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need to deny it, but accept what makes you you. And that's one of the biggest things that helped me get through it, when I was young, is that I accepted that it's okay to not always be happy. It's okay to sometimes feel weak. And I was like, what's wrong with me for feeling this way? I shouldn't feel this way. But eventually I'm like, oh, that's just being human. It's not always easy. Some of us are chemically imbalanced, but it's just, I don't know. I just want anyone, like you said, that hears it to not ever give up, man. The only thing you could do that would be selfish is not offer your gift of you to the world.
I agree. I think I 100% agree. I also want to, for anybody who's watching this, there are a lot of great books, literature about how to deal with these emotions too. Ones that I would recommend particularly are The Untethered Soul. And I think that there's one written by the same author called The Surrender Project. But just, plug in that if anybody's, dealing with emotions and stuff like that, it's really been profound, and it's helped me realize how to deal with my emotions. And it's just, there are helpful resources out there.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask was, what has been the most valuable trait that you have that helped you reach this point where you are now?
That's a fantastic question. I think for starters, just to, set the stage, I am not a smart person. I am somebody who got laid off.
You're very humble.
Oh, thanks. But I'm very much not a smart person. I got laid off, in college. I remember taking one of my midterms, and then out of a 20 question, physics test, I got 2 right.
You're the Rock Lee, not the Sasuke.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a Rock Lee. So I think for me, I think it's more of I think it's all about the power of course correction and consistency. And so, and this is something I know people always say, oh, you got to be consistent, you got to be consistent. But one thing that's really overlooked is the power of course correction. And so let me explain by metaphor, just because that,
Yeah.
so if you think about a golfer, it's actually preposterous to think that a small golf ball the size of like, my fist can get into a small hole, that's like 500 feet away. So just
Yeah.
on that perspective, it's very absurd. And so with that being said, everybody, even the most beginners of the beginners, will get that small ball in that small hole within like 15 strokes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes a beginner, they'll take a first swing at that golf ball, and sometimes it'll even go backwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
from there, then they go back to where the ball landed. They hit it forward. And then once again, they'll hit it forward again. And then eventually, every single person will get that small golf ball into that hole. And that's
Yeah.
the power of course correction. So no matter what, as long as you kind of pivot and you're willing to pivot based off of kind of what makes sense, then you will eventually get to where you want to go. So that's literally my entire story of how I got to where I am today, is seriously just pivoting. So like I started from, getting laid off. So then my first
Mhm.
pivot was like, okay, well, what do I want to do? I don't know. I like music. I guess I'll start a YouTube channel. And then from there, I was making music videos, and I was like, okay, these advice videos aren't working. I'm going to try other things. And then the music video thing took off. So then I did that. And then I was like, all right, well then, how do I want to make, more of an impact? Then I pivoted, and then I did the, I started Scream Academy. And along the way, there's a bunch of micro failures, but the only thing that really got me to where I am today is that the ability to course correct.
That's sick. How long did Screen Academy take to develop? I mean, it must have been a while.
Sure. So it's really funny that you ask that, because I actually learned how to scream in the months of making Scream Academy. So I
Ah,
actually learned how to scream while making Scream Academy, but that was actually very intentional. And the reason why that is because one of the biggest problems that a lot of screaming instructors have is that
yeah.
they have this phenomenon called the curse of knowledge, meaning that they're such an expert at the thing that they teach
It's hard
that
to put the perspective from being knowing
exactly.
nothing.
Exactly. It's really hard for an expert who's been doing it for years to really kind of, get back down to a beginner level and communicate in a way that a beginner would understand. So with that
Yeah.
being said, it was actually very intentional that I learned the entire thing, and I documented my entire process. I took a
Yeah.
video every single day of me trying to learn how to
I
scream.
remember seeing those.
Yeah, yeah. So that it's like so to answer your question, it didn't take that long, probably about like 4 6 months.
4 or 6 months. How many hours you put in each day, you think?
I would say probably about like 8. You know what I mean?
What made you decide? Like, okay, so when I first ran into Scream Academy and you on
Yeah.
the emails, I was like, this guy watched Kong's video on how to like share your skill and stuff. And I was like, I mean, Kong's a really smart guy. And I even thought of it too. I was like, I mean, you told me yourself, you're like, yeah, Kong's a big like help on like how I formatted things. I'm assuming that's true, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and so
He's a
for
pretty
those
smart guy.
those people who are watching, Kong, when we say Kong is the founder of a company called Jump Cut, and then they essentially
Yeah,
are
that
a
academy.
education school that teaches online entrepreneurs, and I was one of their students. And so
Oh, that's
Kong
awesome.
is a fantastic mentor of mine. I've had the fortune of meeting him a couple of times, but he's a
Oh, that's cool.
fantastic individual. But sorry, what was your question?
I don't even know. I think I was just talking about. I was just reflecting on that, and I was like, I can very much see a reflection or a shadow, like
Mm,
the way Scream Academy is set up. I was like, this very much reminds me of Jump Cut, and I just had
yeah.
to ask, like, did
No,
that
no, it was.
influence it at all?
No, absolutely, absolutely. Just like, how a musical artist will be influenced by like Black Dahlia Murder or
Yeah,
Between the Buried and Me. I definitely I look up
Buried in
to
Me. I
Kong as
love
one of my
Between Buried
mentors.
in Me. I got to see
Yeah.
them once live, and they were crazy fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of take you after like us talking as much of a businessman as you are an artist or a vocalist too. You
Yeah.
definitely have a way of approaching things from it seems like an analytical standpoint every time.
Yeah. So I think the thing is like, that's a good question. That's a very astute observation. So the thing is, I started with my passion of like, wanting to do music, but it's kind of funny because like the more and more I get into it, the more and more my actual interest in it has like pivoted from music to the actual business side. And the
Yeah.
reason why that is because business is really tied to personal development and who you are as a
Mm-hmm.
person. And so one thing that I discovered is by growing my business and going along with all the failures that comes with it, I've actually grown into a much more developed person. So I think
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, a lot of people, what they're really attracted to is that personal growth. And sometimes they use music as a proxy for that. Like, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they enjoy growing, but, they form it in the way of like, oh yeah, I'm playing guitar and I'm getting better at guitar.
Yeah.
Maybe they channel that desire for self-growth into like, oh, I like building businesses, I'm going to do this, or like, starting a YouTube channel. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's really yeah, my focus is definitely, my interest has definitely shifted.
Have the YouTube videos been getting like increased traffic since the quarantine? Mine
uh,
sure have.
so I actually haven't been keeping too much tabs on that, but I definitely wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, my like I think like it's almost got to the point where it's doubled. It's reaching almost a
Yeah.
100,000 hour. I don't even know. Let me go look at this thing, whatever it tells me. Okay, like almost, and there's nothing compared to your channel. Like almost 8,000 watched hours every month, and it was only at
It's a
like
lot.
6,000. Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
awesome. Like 126. I mean, it's just right now. I think it's because there's such a need for media to be taken in because everyone's stuck at home. And but I mean it's great. I'm glad they're here learning something rather than watching Netflix all day.
No, for sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
did you
Absolutely.
did you know that Shakespeare wrote some of his most famous playwrights when he was self-isolating from the Black Death?
Oh, really? I did not know that. That's
Yep.
really interesting.
And Isaac Newton wrote the whole theory or the whole universal laws and principles of gravitation when he was when he was self-isolating from, it wasn't the Black Death, but it was the bubonic plague.
Wow, that's crazy. That's definitely puts me to shame. I feel like I'd just be like watching porn or something.
No, hentai, hentai.
Yeah, hentai,
When
hentai.
everyone asks me, they're like, "What do you watch?" I'm like, "Hentai, bro. I don't watch porn, dude." Bro, no way. I'm watching Project Melody, dude.
Yeah.
But I mean, it
Exactly.
was interesting. There's like you never know who's gonna come out. Like being stuck in your home, I think gives you time to reflect, and who knows what skills people can be developing in this time. And hopefully, there's never another time like this in our lifetime where we have this opportunity.
Yeah.
But I really can't wait to see what some people do with this opportunity that they have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything is an opportunity of some sort. So I think you hit the nail on the head.
I think everything's an opportunity as long as you learn from it. I
Yeah.
have made my fair share of failings. Like, I remember, man, I used to be so lazy and just make excuses for why I hadn't accomplished something I wanted to. It was always
Yeah.
an excuse why it wasn't my fault.
Hmm.
And eventually, one day it just kind of hit that it was like, man, no more excuses. And it's time to do what I want to do. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't. But there shouldn't be any more excuses. I'm just gonna go at it. And it was slow. It's not
Hmm.
like my first video had 100 views or anything.
Hmm.
Like if I let that stop me, I wouldn't be where I am today and going to where hopefully I will be. But I think there's a time in everyone's life where there's like a big paradigm shift, and suddenly,
Yes.
rather than it might not even be a mentality shift as much as it is just a desire that
Hmm.
grows. It could be a desire grows, it could be a mental shift, but that paradigm crosses over, and I think
Yes.
that's when
Hmm.
people begin that journey.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I feel like that's it. That's when I feel like people grow the most and end up being the happiest. Because I feel like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I feel
Yeah.
like, if you're just before that paradigm shift, then you're probably at some plateau of some sort, and you're probably not that happy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's an overgeneralized statement, but
Plateau, yeah,
that's
I would
at
say
least,
it's more of a gorge that I was stuck
yeah.
in. Man, I remember my friend like brought some mushrooms from Peru and he was like, take these. And I was like, okay, I don't care anyways though, because I'm depressed. And
Yeah.
then woo, like some next day I reflected and meditated on a lot of stuff and I was like, it's time to level up. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
that funny, but I mean, in
No,
reality, I can
totally.
say that.
Totally. I think there's a certain gift in desperation.
Yeah.
There's a certain gift in having your back against the wall and having no other choice but to try the
Yep.
thing that you didn't want to try. There's
Yeah.
a gift in that.
I mean, I think it's good too because that's when people. I mean, that's always when at least, thank God, I hopefully will never be at that point again. But that's definitely how my journey began. And even if you're going down to that point, that's okay. That's part of the journey. The key is, just don't die on your way there because you have a lot of things that you're going to give to the world, my people. Like, and that's the best gift you can do. You might be the best mom or the best dad. You
Mm,
might be a great artist, but I guarantee you that you're going to make a difference somehow
I
in
agree.
find love and importance.
I agree. I agree. And the thing is, like, you don't even have to get it right the first time. Like I said,
Thank goodness we
just
don't.
do follow, and it sounds really fucking cliche, but just follow your passion and then just course correct. What I was talking about earlier, just keep
Yeah.
on course correcting. And then because maybe the first thing you take, it'll make you happy, but it doesn't fulfill some other needs. So then pivot so that you're happy and then you have that other need. If that doesn't work out for whatever reason, then just pivot until you
Yeah.
slowly work yourself into a situation where you're very happy with.
Where do you come up with your best ideas? Like, my best ideas always in the shower. Like, I feel like it's always in the shower when I come up with my best. What? So, I mean, I definitely myself, I love what I'm doing on YouTube. I get lucky that I can teach from home, work from home, and that I can make music. It wasn't the easiest thing to learn. It was easy to start, and it was very easy to realize that I did not know anything about music. My first thing was not in key. I mean, it was some crazy stuff, but I'm curious, how many students do you think you've helped over your whole time of like Riff Shop and Scream Academy?
So I think we're roughly at about 1,000 paying students.
Cool.
But aside from that, I am more than happy to help people for free. But granted, of course, like, I can't like spend one time with everybody. So
Yeah.
we have the free screaming crash course, and that crash course, about 80,000 people have gone through it.
Yep.
So I'd like to say
Wow.
that, that, I'd like to be optimistic and say that, hopefully 80,000 of those people took at least something, at least one little nugget of information from our free course that,
Yeah.
changed the trajectory of their vocal journey.
So are you out in LA right now?
I'm in San Francisco.
San Francisco. Is that near LA?
It's about like 4 to 6 hours. So it's yeah.
So not that close. Never mind. Has
Yeah.
being on the West Coast helped with at all with like kind of doing what you're doing? I mean, I know there's a lot of like studios and connections out there, but I can't imagine it's easy to just meet those people or anything that you need.
So I wouldn't say that San Francisco has been uniquely helpful. I mean, like, I think it's helped in the way that being around upward mobilizing people is really healthy for you. So
Yeah.
being around other people who are really kind of like goal achievers, that has a really positive influence, subconscious or conscious, on your ability to do the same. So I think that, I think if you were to compare that with some place, like, that I'm not going to call out any specific like place, but if some other place that, you feel like nobody's really trying to achieve anything, then yeah, San Francisco is good.
That
I
can
think
apply
that,
to life too, and kind of
yeah,
like people you surround yourself with.
exactly, because they say that, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So, who are you spending your time with? That's probably going to reflect who you are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's really cool to think about. So I've always been on the East Coast. Have you always been on West Coast?
Yes.
Ah, really? Okay, cool, cool. So the furthest west I've ever been is Atlanta. My favorite places I've ever lived are here in Charlotte and in Atlanta. Do you have a favorite place? Is it where you are now? Has it been in the
Um,
past?
yeah, well, I think that it's very much. I do enjoy San Francisco. I do enjoy the Bay Area. I do enjoy LA. From what I've heard, I'm not sure if I could. I'm pretty introverted, so I mean, like, I don't know if I could stay in like a place like that for long.
Yeah.
But and also like since I'm a weeb, like Japan's fucking awesome. I'd love to just
Oh,
live in Japan. So
have you been there?
I've been before, but I mean I was like really young
Oh,
and yeah, and I feel like your experience is different, like at different
yeah.
ages.
Oh, of course. You're going to be
Yeah.
doing different things. You might be guiding your own experience or you're going to
Yeah,
be in
exactly.
family. I've never been out of the country, but Japan would be amazing. I mean, I've always wanted to go to South Korea and
Yeah.
I am an ESL teacher, so I can do that stuff, but I'm not wanting to
Hey.
uproot my whole life, especially now that like the YouTube is happening and the music. I'm like, man, what
Yeah.
do
Well, the beauty of it is that you could do that anywhere.
Yeah. Really what I want to do is just one day have a chance to like have a conversation with all my heroes. Like one day one day I'd love to have a conversation with Porter Robinson, Johnny Craig. Like even though he shouldn't be a hero, I still want to get in his mind. You know,
Yeah.
like a conversation with you, maybe of some video game player like Zero. I mean, in general, I mean, it would be great for me, I guess, if I reached my deathbed to know that I accomplished something, but also got to like speak to those people. Do you have anyone
Yeah.
you would think or you would say is like that, other than like
Um,
Greg?
that's a good other than who? Oh, Greg. I think that there's definitely certain qualities that I admire about certain people. I think definitely from a musician standpoint, the people of meeting the guys in Dillinger Escape Plan would be really, really cool. Same with my one of my favorite bands is Muse. I think meeting Matt
Oh,
Bellamy would be a
Muse.
dream come true. I think as far as like building a business, I definitely really look up to I've mentioned Kong. He's a mentor. I mean, I've met him already, but I
Mhm.
mean, like, he's definitely somebody I value my time with. Some notable writers, I think. Let's see. The writer of the book Untethered Soul. I don't really remember his name off the top of my head. Um, yeah. So there's definitely some like business people that I'm really fond of.
Michael
Peter
Allen Singer.
Thiel. Yeah, that sounds right. Oh
Mm.
yeah, and then yeah, so it's there's a lot of people for different reasons. It's really hard for me to kind of narrow it down.
Have you ever been told that like you've made that impact on someone's life, and what has it meant to you when you heard that?
It feels like it feels like I'm not the person that should be thanked. I feel like I'm more of like and this sounds like kind of like woo woo, but I feel like I'm more like I am just kind of a curated form of like the learnings that I've learned. So it's not
Hmm.
like I can't take credit for any of this stuff because like any thought that I've had, most of them like they just aren't original. So it's like in a sense, I'm just like I'm happy that I get to kind of pay it forward, but ultimately,
Yeah.
the buck doesn't fall at me. It's by people a lot smarter.
Well, it's good that you feel that responsibility. Like you said, with so many eyes on you, you begin to feel a responsibility of like spreading a positive message. And I definitely feel the same way. And it makes me even more humbled and feel that way when I hear that. Like I've heard that a few times, and it's always like, look, guy, trust me, I'm no one to look up to. I'm a big doofus, but I mean, I pretend like I'm real smart, but I probably am a big dummy. But it's
Yeah,
very like I didn't realize that, the opportunities that we have and here and now, we really can, make a difference. And who knows what kid is listening to like me in high school. Billy Talent was just like my saving grace back then. Who knows who's watching you now and listening? And I think even though it's okay to be weak and broken, you really do share or feel that responsibility of spreading that positive message and doing more positive with what you have than putting out negative. I don't
I
know.
agree.
I don't know if everyone feels that way. There are a few sociopaths, and I feel very sympathetic for them. But
Yeah.
luckily, I think deep down in all of us, we try and I think when given that opportunity, we want to take care of what we have if it's important to us.
I'm like you. I'm fairly optimistic about human nature. My lens that I'd like to view the world through is that I believe that people are inherently good people. And like what you said, if given the opportunity to help, my hope, and this is just me hoping too,
Yeah.
I hope and think that most people would take that opportunity.
Yeah. I think it kind of reflects even now with this COVID thing. Medical research has always been so held onto like it's a jewel and treasure. I mean, it was very rare to know institutions other than St. Jude that shared medical research and development information. But with the whole COVID-19 thing, there has been communications that opened up between doctors in the US, globally, like everywhere, like information is being shared because, we don't have the luxury to dislike someone because of a label anymore. Now everyone is starting to feel like a vulnerable human. Because you have this many followers isn't going to save you from COVID. Because you've done this, or this is who you are, or you're born here, you're now a human just like that neighbor. And I think that's kind of beautiful that we get to see the world come together like that, even though there's so much bad parts that we don't love. There's still that one. Looking at that side of it, it really is beautiful in my opinion.
No, I agree. It's I 1000% agree. I think it's kind of like an ego death.
Yes.
It's kind of like these, and I had a personal experience with this as well, where when Riff Shop did really well, it was really interesting because we did a specific launch, and then it went really well. And after that launch, I fell into a sort of funk. I fell into a sort of, depression's too strong of a word, but I definitely felt down for a while. And I realized it was because my identity held so tightly to the fact that I was working hard towards this one goal, that once this goal was done, then I had essentially no reason to live for. So I definitely had to do some soul searching, but I guess one of the main learnings that helped me kind of come out of it was that one of those things is that, I'm not really, that's not who I am. I'm just a person, and, that doesn't define me. And I started to kind of, just fall in love with just the ability to just continue to grow. So that's kind of like where I'm at.
It's actually what I try, like, and inspire. So I live with a few roommates, and one thing I always working with them is being like, hey, like if they ever ask for advice, I'm like, what did you do that made you happy? Like I have a college student that lives here that I tutor. I mean, I'm 29. I don't, how old are you?
I'm 28. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So we're like near the same thing. Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could tell myself one thing when I was younger, it would be like, don't worry.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, real quickly, hold on. I have an incoming call at 10 real quickly. Is it okay if I, let's see. Is it okay if we pick this up later?
Yeah, only if you want to. We don't have to.
Okay, sure. Well, no, I'd be more than happy to for like 30 minutes because like I didn't record the first like half an hour.
So you want to do it like sometime later this week? I'll message you on Facebook.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy with that.
All right, let's aim for sometime later this week. I mean, thanks so much just in general, and we'll set something up. All right, man?
Sounds good. All right, talk to you later.
All right, talk to you later, bro.
Bye.
Yeah.